My name is Ray Garford. I'm 73 years old in 2021, and I was very fortunate to have gone to Zimbabwe and Botswana in 1985 through to 1994 as a teacher, and it initially came out as Two Goats, One Wife, which is about bride price, and I discovered in European marketing that bride price is not well understood. Anyways, I had the fortune to join up with WUSC, which is the World University Services of Canada, in September 1985, and flew to Harare, Zimbabwe, to start my teaching there, and ended up falling in love with Africa, falling in love with a young lady there, and having 2 children. And I spent a total of 9 years between Zimbabwe and Botswana. Anyways, this is chapter 1 of my book, which was published in 2015 and is now available on Amazon and Kindle as Teacher Sir, Snakes, Bride Price Culture, Adventure, an African Memoir. The funds raised by this book hopefully are going to go to VSDA, which is Village School Development Agency, which has been started by my friends Kate and Patrick and Pulabusi in Edmonton, Alberta, and they've been busy building schools in Zambia. More about that later on. Anyways, here we go. Chapter 1. You're going where? It was only when I saw the flickering light dancing on my Birkenstocks that the enormity of my recent decisions hit me. Ray Garford, 37, sometime teacher and former publicist for the International of the Year Youth Festival, knelt down and peered under the combi, which is what I learned to call the vehicle that very afternoon. Several wires were engulfed in flames. Panic suddenly seized me and throttled my vocal cords. Fire! I yelled, and then, under here! Captain Karen Olsen turned to her young Salvation Army cadet, but Samson was already on it, scooping up a fistful of dirt from the ditch that I had failed to see in the recent darkness. The young man hurled it at the offending flames and successfully snuffed it out. My mind was reeling. It seemed as if I were watching one of those slow-motion movies of life flashing in front of your eyes. Inside the combi, had it exploded, were the remainder of my resettlement dollars, my passport, my beloved Pentax camera, perhaps of more practical value for the immediate future, were the few pieces of furniture that I had managed to salvage from the earlier misunderstanding about a 10-ton truck. It was one of those heart-stopping moments when I realized just what I had let myself in for. It began all very simply. My contract with the YMCA in Vancouver was ending in September, and I needed to find work. On a trip down to the Pender Street office of Canada Manpower, I spotted a card announcing an information session for opportunities to teach in the recently independent Zimbabwe. Teaching had the potential to pay the rent on a more reliable basis than being an itinerant theatre publicist, self-preservation getting the better of me. So I decided to attend. The presentation was sufficiently intriguing that I signed up for an interview, and shortly thereafter I received a phone call to be at the UBC the following afternoon. I arrived at Brock Hall about 20 minutes before my scheduled appointment. There were a number of empty rooms upstairs, but none of them had any signs posted to indicate that I was in the right place. I wandered around hopefully, but even room 222, the very room designated for the encounter, was empty, except for an unoccupied desk and a chair. I decided to wait in the sunshine across the corridor in the room opposite. A few minutes later, I was joined by two men of about my own age who sauntered into the room. The conversation about the sunshine became a diversion, and I forgot to keep looking at my watch, wondering if I was in the wrong place, or was it the wrong time, or even had it been another day. Their company was cheerful, and we swapped stories about hitchhiking through Europe until I suddenly looked up and caught sight of a wall clock and realized that I must somehow have made a mistake. "I should go," I said. I was here for an interview, and I seem to have missed it." "To teach in Zimbabwe," one of them mentioned. "Yes, is this the right place? Are you going there too?" I asked hopefully. "No, we've just come back. I was the deputy headmaster at Nyanga, and this fellow was the head of the English department. So would you like to go?" That was it, the only question that I was actually asked. The initial interview was followed a week later by another and a return visit to Pender Street. "One more question," said Mr. Madawarima, a fatherly figure from the Ministry of Education in Harare, slipping his glasses forward in order to see more clearly. "Let us suppose that your headmaster does something that you think is wrong. What would you do about it?" I was not quite sure what I was being asked. Did it mean that the hypothetical headmaster was inexperienced and had made a fundamental pedagogical error, as in, girls aren't intelligent as boys? Or did it imply that the headmaster might be doing something illegal? Although my response was diplomatic, I never forgot the question, and it did come back to haunt me. So, on August 24th, 1985, I was on a bus from Doval Airport to the Zimbabwe orientation with WUSC. At my farewell party, my friends said, "You're going where? And you're getting paid how much? And what on earth for?" And my theatre friends had said, "Amazing! How do you always manage to score these incredible gigs? Be sure to let us know how it's going." Suddenly it was very exciting and gave me one last chance to decide if this was what I really wanted to be doing. However, I lost my objectivity quickly and forgot about that part of it. I was really enjoying meeting new people, and I soon got caught up in the activities, the encounter groups, and the games. A week later, I was in London saying goodbye to Stephen, my older brother, en route to Lilongwe, Malawi, where the 747 disgorged too many passengers to make the onward trip to Harare. I chose to be one of the volunteers to catch a later flight and enjoyed 2 relaxing days in a luxury hotel, which was followed by a day of catch-up in Harare, and then the phone call from the Salvation Army Mission School at Bradley Holt, to which I was being posted. "Mr. being arrived in Harare at BT Hotel." To make matters worse, she had a thick Scandinavian accent. "I'm sorry, I didn't quite get all of that. What time did you say?" Captain Olson repeated the time and suggested that I buy furniture I needed, as they were coming in the truck and wouldn't be back in Harare for some time. I had already sourced out furniture in a store, unexpectedly finding a well-made pine chest of drawers, a dining table and chairs, a double bed, and even a large solid desk. The truck, it turned out, was what is known locally as a combi. It is a combination, they said, of a truck and a car, tending more towards the size of car. After hurried arrangements and much effort, the bed and a couple of chairs made it into the back, and I and 3 others crammed ourselves in the front. The furniture store promised that they would get Rhodes Motor Services to deliver the rest in a couple of days. I felt excited as we chugged out of the big city, and soon we were driving past spectacular farmlands that had been mostly cleared and made ready for the summer rains. The land was flat, and Captain Olson had a heavy foot, which, on reflection, turned out to be a good thing. Suddenly, the motor cut out. "We're out of petrol," she announced sheepishly. Fortunately, our momentum carried us to the Centenary Junction, but at 5:50 p.m. there was concern that the petrol station might already be closed. Sampson, a junior Salvation Army cadet, was off at a sprint with the gas can, and as the last light was draining from the sky, he reappeared triumphant with 10 litres. In the rural areas in the tropics, darkness descends suddenly, and by the time we were on our way again, it was pitch black outside. "That'll get us to Bindura," Captain Olson stated confidently. "And they stay open until 8 o'clock. We had just passed the halfway mark between the junction and Bindura when I glanced down at the dashboard. There was an acrid smell emanating from somewhere close by, and my eyes began to sting. To my horror, I saw a small grey plume of smoke rising from the dashboard. After stopping, I peeled away the plastic cover and discovered a panel of fuses. 2 of them were wrapped in silver foil. One was smouldering. Sampson deftly jerked them out from their moorings. Fuses are hard to find sometimes. Cigarette packages have silver foil lining. It lasts for a while," explained Captain Olson. It was only the radio, so we continue, no problem. "By right," she declared cheerfully. "The combi should be in the garage. I just hope we don't get stranded in the Shashi Pass tonight. There are leopards, baboons, and lots of snakes there, and it's a long uphill walk." Well, no problem did turn out to be a bit of a problem. We made it to Bindura and got the necessary petrol, but no fuses, which was why I was standing on the roadside at the top of Shashi Pass, within sight of our school at Bradley Holt. "It's only 6 kilometers, breezed Captain Olson. Easy for her to say. I thought, you don't have to haul your luggage there. I do. Just as we had crested the Shashi Pass, let out a spontaneous cheer and settled back for the gentle coast downhill to the school, the vehicle suddenly went dark and rolled to a halt. After the headlights vanished, the immediate outside seemed ominously and mostly pitch black. All around us, I could see sheets of flame leaping into the night sky as intermittent burns flared across a non-yet visible valley landscape. Hunters set fires at this time of the year to flush out smaller animals, and snakes also flee from the flames. So you must be careful, our instructors had warned us. As my sight grew more accustomed to the dark, I looked up. The canopy of stars was breathtaking. I had never imagined so many stars, even though I had spent several winters in northern BC and had seen the northern lights. There was no moon yet visible, but the stars were so plentiful that they cast dim shadows on the tarred road. Drums were beating somewhere nearby, and the acrid smell of smoke was everywhere. Thoughts about Dorothy and Kansas skittered through my mind, but mostly I worried about snakes. Having been warned that they are nocturnal creatures, and this was their home turf, I began to recall their names: mambas, cobras, adders of several stripes and hues, pythons and boomslangs, to mention but a few. Brisk, ever practical and efficient, Captain Karen Olsen summed up the situation. "We need assistance," she pronounced. "I shall walk to Bradley. Someone needs to stay with the vehicle," I volunteered. She and Sampson set off into the night, leaving me to get to know Jim Kirk. "Welcome to Africa." He had been sitting on the other side of Sampson throughout, so we hadn't managed to have much of a conversation up to this point. He was American and had been at the school for the past 2 years. "Yep," he repeated. "Welcome to Africa." he, he pulled out my 2 kitchen chairs and sat down to read to check out my religious credentials. After 10 minutes of interrogation, he decided I was an unlikely convert, and the topic never came up again. He had well-formed opinions about life, including that I would like Bradley. The house I was to live in had belonged to a Canadian family previously, and he told me how they had inadvertently set fire to a python, which had caused great anxiety amongst the African population of the school. It seems that pythons are considered sacred, and killing one brings bad luck. About 40 minutes later, Hans Schneider, the also recently hired German teacher, arrived in his jeep to rescue us. Chains were produced, and I volunteered to steer the combi as he towed us to the school in short order. Once inside the compound gates, I hurriedly unloaded my belongings into the large empty house and made my way over to the Kirk household for supper. I was introduced to Mrs. Captain James Kirk and their 2 children, and was asked to say grace before eating. I bit my tongue as I wanted to say, "God help us," as I looked through the well-intentioned meatloaf and rice. However, it did bring into focus the fact that I had not considered bringing any food with me from Harare. It was a boarding school after all. Would I be eating with the students, or would I be cooking for myself? These questions had never crossed my mind in the frenzy of furniture shopping, and I guessed that the answers would have to come on the morrow. As soon as it was socially acceptable, I thanked the Kirks for their generosity and left, nervously keeping my eyes open for the relatives of the deceased python as I made my way back to the house and an early bed. Chapter 1.